Joanna Small, Public Affairs and Communications Manager for the Lynnwood Police Department. It's Saturday, March 26th, and this is your LPD Video Week in Review. Here's a summary of some of the most notable incidents your Lynnwood police officers responded to over this past week or so. On March 24th, one of our officers responded to a complaint from a resident about what appeared to be an abandoned RV at Stadler Ridge Park. When he arrived with our social worker, they knocked on the door and no one answered. Their intent was to tell the owner they needed to move the RV, but also to offer them social services, not a criminal citation. While they were on scene, dispatchers received a 911 call about a home invasion nearby. Officers rushed to the location only to learn the address did not exist and it was a bogus call. At the same time, we spotted the RV driving away. We now have reason to believe the person inside made the 911 call, and that person is wanted on a felony escaping DOC community custody warrant for an original charge of assault with a deadly weapon. The Washington plate number on the Ford Econoline is CCB0405. If you see it, please reach out to the email address that's listed on your screen. On March 16th, officers were called to the 24-Hour Fitness near Alderwood Mall for reports of a locker break-in that resulted in a stolen purse and stolen car. When we arrived, we learned that staff at the facility were able to identify a possible suspect based on check-in times and then find her on surveillance stealing the victim's car. The victim's credit cards were immediately used at stores in the mall for charges totaling nearly $800. It turns out this suspect had recently changed the name on her gym account, and both names are associated with warrants. Also, the Northgate 24-Hour Fitness experienced a similar crime the week before with the same suspect. Fortunately, the stolen vehicle in our Lynnwood case was recovered the following day in Seattle. We are still working to make an arrest. On March 11th, K-9 Cairo and Officer Creech were called to assist the Edmonds Police Department with the apprehension of a suspect who had fled from a stolen vehicle. The team saw the suspect running towards a heavily populated shopping center and gave chase. He continuously refused to listen to commands to stop, but finally K-9 Cairo and his handler caught up, and our officer was able to grab his arms and torso and take him to the ground without Cairo biting or otherwise engaging the suspect. The suspect was then taken into custody by Edmonds Police. We've told you before we are investigating a string of burglaries with similar MOs: a shattered back window or glass door, stolen cash, jewelry, and electronics. On March 12th, we were called to another one of these burglaries in the 17,000 block of 34th Place West. The homeowner discovered his house had been ransacked after being gone for several days. He estimated nearly $100,000 in cash and items were missing from his home. As with some of the other similar burglaries, an unfamiliar black sedan was noticed in the area. Our detectives are working diligently on this and all of these possibly related burglary cases. Please remember, do not keep large amounts of cash in your house. Also on March 12th, officers were called to Fred Meyer for reports that a theft suspect had just returned merchandise he picked up in the store for cash, refused to return the money to another employee who caught him in the act, and then walked out of the store. When we attempted to stop him nearby, he punched one of our officers in her eye and fled. Another officer caught up to the suspect and took him to the ground, where he continued to fight but was finally safely taken into custody. He's now facing charges for assault and obstructing a law enforcement officer in addition to the original theft charge. On March 16th, officers were called to a serious collision at the intersection of 68th Avenue West and 196th Street Southwest. 4 teenagers were in a vehicle that was speeding and crashed into a telephone pole. All 4 attempted to leave the scene, but all 4 were injured and needed to be transported to the hospital, with the driver needing medical attention at Harborview. There were open bottles and cans of alcohol all over the inside of the vehicle. We learned the driver had no license or insurance, and he was cited for those offenses, as well as having the open containers of alcohol in the vehicle. He is also facing DUI charges pending the results of a blood draw. On March 17th, officers were called to the Avalon Apartments, a new complex on Alderwood Mall Parkway, for reports that a manager had discovered a burglarized unit. The renter was out of town and there were pry marks on the door. Officers were given permission to search and found obvious signs of a burglary. When the tenant returned several days later, he was able to do an inventory of the apartment and determined more than $10,000 in electronics and jewelry had been taken, likely loaded into 2 backpacks and 3 suitcases belonging to the renter. If you believe you have any information about this crime, call the number that appears on your screen. On March 22nd, officers were called to the 3300 block of 177th Place Southwest for reports that a suspicious package had been found. The homeowner told us when he got home, he saw what he described as a bag of crystals wrapped in plastic sitting in his front yard. It turns out it was nearly a pound of methamphetamine. Our crime scene technician checked the bag for fingerprints but did not locate any. The drugs were entered into evidence, and we appreciate the vigilant homeowner calling in the discovery immediately. Overnight on March 23rd, we were dispatched to what was reported as a burglary in progress at Kohl'S. We discovered 2 broken windows at the store, but it appeared no one had made entry. Bellevue Rare Coin, which is located nearby, also had a smashed glass door, but no burglary had occurred. By watching surveillance footage from Kohl'S, it was determined the suspect, likely in both incidents, had stolen from Kohl'S earlier in the night. He was identified and located by officers yesterday and is now facing felony malicious mischief charges. And finally, our hearts go out to the Everett Police Department as they deal with the tragedy and the loss of one of their own officers. That's all for now. We'll see you next time.